Thank you. Thanks for getting us all together. And let's hear it for our host, Pete Milne. Pete, thank you for having us at your great. He's previewing the new color scheme on his house behind you. You can see the painting in progress. He's telling me a little bit about the history of this great home. It reminds me a little bit of the neighborhood that we live in El Paso, Texas, Sunset Heights, which is one of the first neighborhoods. And it was built at the end of the last, it was built at the end of the 19th century. And it was populated by and large by those who were fleeing revolution and violence and brutality in Mexico and in Chihuahua during the Mexican Revolution. I don't know how many of you know the name Porfirio Diaz, but he was the dictator. Well, some people like him apparently, but he was the repressive dictator in Mexico that Francisco Madero and Pancho Villa, both of whom lived in El Paso, Texas. Pancho Villa lived on the street that we're on right now, but that they were trying to overthrow and try to get some better representation for themselves and the people that they cared about in Mexico. And so in the midst of that revolution, as people are fleeing that violence, they come to El Paso, Texas, and they settle Sunset Heights. And we actually have a street in our neighborhood, Porfirio Diaz. It may be the only street named after that dictator in the world, and it happens to be in our neighborhood. But so much great history that reflects the fact that El Paso's strength, by extension the strength of the state, by extension the strength of this country, is based on the fact that we are a city of immigrants and refugees and asylum seekers, folks from all over the world. 24% of the people that I represent were born in another country, most of them in Mexico. And it's not unconnected to the fact that El Paso, if you look at the FBI crime statistics as analyzed by CQ Press, is the safest city on the US-Mexico border. It's the safest city in Texas, and it's the safest city in the United States of America. And it has been either the safest or one of the top 3 safest cities for the last 20 years. Flies in the face of everything that you might hear from this president and from folks in Washington, D.C., and otherwise intelligent, well-meaning people who just don't get us or understand the border or realize that those folks who made the incredibly difficult decision to leave their homes and their families and their way of life and their language and their country to come to ours, to do better for themselves, yes, and certainly for their kids, but also to contribute to this country that inspired them and that they love and that they want to be a part of, to contribute to and not just take from the American dream. That's why El Paso is safe. That's why we are successful. That is the foundation of so much of the success and strength for this state, for us as a whole. And it's something that we need to, maybe shouldn't have to, but need to remind ourselves of right now in an era of alternative facts. At a time when a president who vilifies Mexican immigrants as rapists and criminals, whose platform to address those rapists and criminals who are coming to get us, never mind the fact that immigrants commit violent crimes at a much lower rate than native-born Americans. But never mind the facts right now, just focus on the fear. The way to stop that is to build a 30-foot high, all-concrete, 2,000-mile wall from Brownsville to San Diego, California. Never mind that apprehensions are at their lowest levels in modern history, certainly in my lifetime. I'm 44 years old. Never mind the fact that those that we are apprehending aren't trying to evade detection. They're not running away from us. They're my son Ulysses' age. They're 10-year-old kids fleeing horrific brutality in El Salvador and Guatemala and Honduras. Imagine, for the parents here today, imagine things being so bad that you put your 10-year-old son or daughter into the hands of a smuggler or a coyote to ride the beast, La Bestia, up the length of Mexico without you because their life is in danger. And they do so and get to our front door here in Texas and present themselves and ask for shelter and aid and support and our kindness, which we have done for more than 230 years in this country, and which is obviously, and maybe it's not obvious enough given the election in 2016, but obviously that is who we are as a country. And it's not something that we do that diminishes our strength or costs us or weakens us or makes us less safe. Those are things that make us stronger and safer and more successful and more inspiring to people around the world. If immigration is a problem, it's the best problem we could possibly have. I want to tell you, it is so nice to be here. It's so nice to be asked, why the hell are you in Tyler, Texas? Because we don't see Democratic office holders coming out here very often. We don't see Democrats 600 days before a major election coming to get to know you, listen to you, and be able to work with you. Not just come here in October of 2018 and saying, make sure you vote in a 15-minute stop and then hit the trail to the next town. This is great. One of the most striking things on our drive into Tyler, and I said this to Mary Lou, TV Bob, when we went to Longview not too long ago, is all this green stuff that you guys have here. Coming from the Chihuahuan Desert at the foot of the Rocky Mountains, which is where El Paso is, it gives you a sense of how big Texas is. This is a different place altogether. But we really have some things in common, right? We really want to do better for ourselves and our kids, just like those immigrants that we're talking about. Maybe some of the immigrants who are here with us in Pete's backyard this morning, who just want a better life and are willing to work for it and are not counting on anyone else to do it for them. They're not asking for a handout. They're not waiting for a savior. They're not hoping that things will change and get better. They're willing to do the work necessary. They're willing to come out to Pete's to drink some of this wonderful high-octane coffee that I just had a sip of, and that's all I need. And willing to make a commitment that goes beyond this morning and will extend through the weeks and months and even years ahead. That if we don't want walls or Muslim bans or continuous, nonstop, no end in sight war in the Middle East, if we want to treat each other with respect and dignity, if we want to fulfill our commitments to each other, we were talking about veterans earlier, making sure that every single person who's ever served this country, put their lives on the line, can get into a VA, see a mental health care provider if they have post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, military sexual trauma, to be able to get a great education on the post-9/11 GI Bill or the Montgomery Bill before that, have an opportunity to fulfill their potential. If we want to make sure that healthcare in this country, in this community, is a right and not a privilege, and that if you need to see a doctor, if you need care, if you need help so that you can pursue that job or that education or start that business or write the next great American novel, that it's there. It's a great equalizer. And it's not a function of privilege or luck, who you work for, where you were born. It's your right as a human, as an American. It's what you can expect so that you don't have to worry about whether you put food on the table or buy medication for your son or your daughter. You're just focused on doing better for them. Or in a state, and this is hard for me to believe, that leads not just the country, but now the developed world in maternal mortality, as we made it harder and harder for women to make their own decisions about their own bodies and get the medical treatment, help, guidance that they should have as a person, as a Texan, as the leaders of our families. We know that we can do better. And I know that I've met many of you along the way, online, in person, through email, and I hear you. You're not just going to wait for somebody else to fix that, or shake your head, or say it's too bad, or isn't it a shame, or wait for us to elect somebody else as president in 2020 who's going to make this a priority finally, and then in 2021 start that hard work. you've made the decision that we can cut the wait in half, and that 2018 is our year, and that 2018 starts right now, this morning, in Tyler, Texas. When I was first thinking about this, maybe like you were in November after the election, and wondering, what's going on? What's going on in my country? How am I going to explain this to little Ulysses and his sister Molly and his brother Henry? How am I going to explain it to them now? Because they're following the news. They hear this stuff. They know what's going on. They talk to their friends at school, the little boys and girls who, because they are Muslim American or Mexican American, feel like maybe I don't belong here. Maybe this isn't my country. Maybe the president doesn't like me. Kids have an extraordinarily sensitive ability to know what's happening, perhaps sometimes better than our own. We can justify and rationalize and explain away some of these things and say, really, it could not be as bad as what's happening right now. Kids know this is really bad right now, and they want to know what we're going to do about it.
Sorry, a blue Subaru is blocking somebody from exiting right now, a neighbor.
Sorry, a blue Subaru is blocking a neighbor from being able to get out of their house. And in the spirit of being good to each other, if you own that blue Subaru, please go out and move it just so that that neighbor can get out to do what they're doing. We got it? Okay, thanks. Go blue Subaru. So, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. 2018 is our year. So our kids are our conscience. And not only do they want to know what we're doing right now, you know this, right? Your kids, your grandkids, the kids you are going to have at some point down the road if you haven't already had them, they're going to ask you what you were doing in 2017, when the press became the enemy of the people, when all Muslims, and that's what our then candidate, now president, said, all Muslims should be banned from coming into this country. Or someone who promised military-style roundups of immigrants in our communities around America. These are the things the guy said out in open, promised that he was going to do. And our kids are going to say, look, Mom, Dad, back in 2016 and 2017, he actually said this stuff. You didn't have to figure it out or read between the lines. He told you exactly what he was going to do. And then he started doing it. And so what did you do? And I know that all of us are going to have the best possible answer for our kids, our conscience, ourselves, and our country. We won in 2018. We took our state back. We took our country back. And we did it the right way. We did it here in Pete's backyard. Person to person. No polls or consultants or any intermediaries between those who want to serve and those who will hold us accountable. No PACs, political action committees, corporate cash, special interests. You never have to worry about whether I'm running to represent you or some company or corporation or interest before Congress. You never have to worry if I'm elected to serve you in the Senate, whether that vote I'm taking, that bill that I'm writing, that amendment that I'm supporting is in the best interest of Texas or the best interest in somebody who paid to get me to or keep me in the Senate. I only want to work for and serve you. That's why I'm here right now. That's why we're looking at each other eyeball to eyeball, making this commitment that we're going to do better for our families, for Texas, and for the country. And we're going to do it the right way because our democracy that has worked imperfectly, but pretty damn well for the last 230 years is under attack. And it's not just this current constitutional crisis, which I haven't read the news in the last 13 minutes, so there may be a new crisis since then. But just this week, I yesterday was in a full House briefing with the acting Attorney General because our current Attorney General had has had to recuse himself, not because he saw the light and the president wanted to do the right thing, but because you all called the White House, called Congress, wrote your letters to the editor, and said this is crazy that the Attorney General who was meeting with the Russians and didn't disclose it is going to somehow lead the prosecution and investigation into whether or not there was collusion between the Trump campaign and the Trump administration and the government of Russia and our democracy. You made that happen. And so Rod Rosenstein, who just appointed Bob Mueller, and don't even try to follow me because I can't follow this stuff myself, what's going on there, but who just appointed retired FBI Director Bob Mueller to lead an independent counsel investigation of our president's cabinet campaigns, potential ties to Russians, their hacking in our election, briefed us yesterday. And I realized that everything that we have worked for, we, the American people, for the last 230 plus years, everything that we have fought for, those incredibly courageous service members who right now are deployed in Afghanistan in our 16th year of war there, or are in Iraq, or are in Syria, or are in Yemen, or are in Somalia, or are in Libya, all places where we have gone to war since 2001 when we first authorized the use of force to meet the threats that came home to us on 9/11/2001. Everything that we have fought for in the years before that, all of that is at stake right now. And it is absolutely possible that we will lose it. And I don't mean to inspire fear or stoke anxiety or paranoia. I just want us to be realistic about the threat that we face and what we must do to counter that. And it is possible now because of the corrosive influence of money in our politics. And the fact that you have otherwise reasonable, intelligent, hardworking, committed men and women in the United States Congress. I know you don't think that, but believe me, I've met them. They're actually good people. But they have been compromised and corrupted and captured by the system that they were elected into. And the only way for many of them to keep their job is to seek out that special interest money, those PAC contributions that ensure that they can mount a campaign that every 2 years will cost millions of dollars to run. And they do it with the best of intentions in mind, right? I want to get reelected so I can do this great thing for the community that I represent, for the American people that I serve. But in order to do that, they make this bargain. I've got to take this money. I've got to do this bidding. I have to make these compromises in my values. So we are not only going to win Texas, we're not only going to change the course for this country, we're not going to only reset the balance in the Senate so we have someone to fight back and provide a check against this president. We're going to do it the right way so that we restore our democracy. And we won't stop there. We're going to end the practice of gerrymandering in this state and in this country, where right now, members of Congress choose their voters instead of the other way around. 36 congressional districts in this great state. We're about to get some more after this next census. 36 congressional districts, one of them is consistently competitive. That's not good for democracy. That doesn't ensure that our Congress reflects and represents the diversity of values and experiences and backgrounds that we have in Texas. Until we have a nonpartisan, forget bipartisan, forget partisan at all, a nonpartisan redistricting commission that is not comprised of politicians or elected leaders, that draws boundaries that are better than my 6-year-old could draw better boundaries than the ones that we have right now, but ensure that everyone's voice and vote matters. Why are we, folks say we're a red state, or maybe we're a purple state, or one day we'll be a blue state. We are a non-voting state. Because, and let's not be judgmental about those who don't vote, because in some ways, they've made a very rational choice. If I have been drawn out of my democracy based on my ethnicity or race or inclination for who I'm going to vote for, and my vote really doesn't matter and it's not going to change the course of this election, then why the heck should I vote in this county commissioner's race or this city council race or this congressional race? So, by reforming our institutions, including money in politics, gerrymandering in congressional districts, and then most importantly, ensuring that we do not have, especially if we can't fix the first two, perpetual re-election to Congress and the Senate. We're going to get our country back. And the things that you care about that we have made no progress on due to this dysfunction, owing to the corruption of our democracy. Things like immigration reform, which we've been talking about for 30 years and have been unable to act on, we'll be able to move forward on that. Universal health care with a single payer, so that health care is a right and not a privilege. We'll be able to get that done. Ending the war on drugs in a country that imprisons more of its own people than any other on the face of the planet, we'll be able to get that done. Supporting our public school teachers to allow them to do what they were called to do in life, to inspire a love of learning for the sake of learning, not for scoring on a standardized test, or these crazy Washington-imposed accountability standards that have no reflection or bearing on what's going on in Tyler or El Paso or other parts of the state, giving control and some faith back to those teachers, those parents, and those classrooms, and letting them do their life's work, what they were called to do. That's going to make us a stronger state, and making sure every kid has access to one of those great teachers and a great classroom and a great school, no matter what side of town they were born on. And by the way, not confusing things, as we talked about earlier, you know, where we say never mind the facts, never mind that transgender kids are more likely to be the victims of violence and intimidation than any other kid in their classroom. Never mind that, we're going to try to scare you, the Republican leadership says, about who's going to come into your kid's bathroom. We'll have you focus on that instead of the quality of the classroom, the funding that we have, or the support of our public school teachers. And how about this? Once you graduate from one of these great schools, at a time that we have $1.4 trillion in outstanding student loan debt, at a time that 10% of that outstanding debt, which is more than all the privately held credit card debt in this country, 10% of those former students are in or risk going into default. What if we made it easier for folks to afford college, to get a degree, an associate's, a bachelor's, a certification, and to find that job that's going to allow them to be successful in life without having to spend tens of thousands of dollars over the next 10 or 20 years to pay all of that back. All of that is possible. We all win when we control our democracy. And when we start doing those things, guess what? People start voting. They believe that their vote matters. They believe they have a voice in this. And that, ladies and gentlemen and children, that is why we're running this campaign in that way. We're not writing anybody off. They say, don't go to Tyler, it's red. Don't go to Smith County, that's a red county. Beto, you need to be in the Rio Grande Valley instead. We're not going to write Tyler off. Just like last night we didn't write Collin County off. Just like we haven't written Killeen or Lubbock or Amarillo or Waco or Corpus Christi or Beaumont or Longview. We're not going to write any part of Texas off, because I want to serve and represent and understand and work with and listen to everyone in the state. And we're also not going to take anyone for granted. So we are in the Rio Grande Valley. We are in McAllen. We are in Brownsville. We are in Laredo and in El Paso, in Houston, in Austin, Fort Worth, in Dallas, San Antonio. We are going to be in every single one of the 254 counties running this race the right way. Here's how we do this together. If you haven't already, I'm not offended if you take out your cell phone. In fact, I encourage you to do that. And text to the following number. This is how you can join the campaign if you have not already. It's 90975, 90975. And you text the name Beto. Beto to 90975. And it's going to ask you for your name, your zip code, and your email address. And that way we stay in touch with you. And so the next time that we are in East Texas, we let you know ahead of time. You come out, you bring a friend, you bring a neighbor. Or we start working on registering people or gaining those who are registered, gaining their commitments to vote. and then ensuring that we take them or help them get to the polls so that we turn out and produce the historic change that we're all fighting for and organized around here today. So make sure you do that, 90975, text Beto. You can also go onto the website, betofortexas.com, and make a donation. I don't care if it's $5 or $5,400, which is the maximum any one person can donate. What is important is that you join more than 24,000 other unique individual donations so far just in 7 weeks that are creating this historic opportunity that we have never seen in Texas, or at least we haven't seen in the last 30 years. We can do this. It's never been more necessary, and if anyone had any question, this week will have put that to rest. It's never been more urgent. And with you being here and your commitment and what you're willing to do, it's never been more possible. They polled this race within the last 4 weeks. The Texas Lyceum, of which Ted Cruz was a member, by the way, in case you're worried about it being in any way partisan. The Texas Lyceum polled this race within the last 4 weeks. It had Ted Cruz at 30%. It had Beto O'Rourke at 30%. And it had the rest of the state undecided. We've never been in this position before. We absolutely can do it. But it's going to take all of us working together and making a commitment. The last thing I would ask, I'm going to stay right here as soon as I finish speaking, and I want a chance to shake as many hands as I can. And then I want you to take a picture. And you can take a picture of us, you can take a picture of yourself, you can take a picture of Pete's house. But when you do, I want you to share that on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and then share the link, betofortexas.com, and say, listen, I came out and I'm part of this campaign and I'm making it possible because, and then you fill it in. It could be women's health care, it could be education, it could be immigration reform, it could be the drug war, it could be ending the ceaseless war in the Middle East, it could be supporting our veterans, it can be the environment and making sure that we have tap water that we can drink, and we fight back against a president who's proposed more than 25% cuts into the EPA at a time that the very health of our kids and families is at stake. Whatever your reason is, you need to share that, because if you did not take a picture of it in 2017 and did not share it with the universe, it simply did not happen. So I'm going to be here to meet you, to take a picture with you, and to welcome you into the campaign. Let me just ask a few concluding questions. First, most important one, do you want to work for this in 2018? Yeah. Do you think that we can do it? Yeah. Do you want to win? Yeah. Are we going to win? Yeah. All right, I feel the same way as you do. I'm going to be right here. Thank you, Pete, for hosting us, Karen for introducing us, Michael for starting us off, and all the great people who made this happen. Thank you.